Okay, we begin our second installment of Honorable Mention. Thank you to all the Na'aleh people, and we thank also for coming to the studio JJ today, and Mrs. Mamzer, and Yael is here as well. We continue. This class is Lili Nishvas Rachel Bas Chaim Tzvi Aleh Shalom, and we're trying to do boot camp to become better people, to be more concerned about others and not so focused upon ourselves, to engage in moral sensitivity towards others, feeling a great sense of empathy towards others. We begin again, Menschlichkeit 101, installment number 2. An important thing we have to remember in our struggle is we have to engage ourselves. There's only one person in this world that we can improve. We spend all of our time trying to improve other people. Only ourselves can we improve when we're busy yelling at our spouse, at our children, at our siblings, complaining about others. And yet there's only one person that we can actually change, and that's the one individual who gets the least attention. What we're trying to do is focus on how we can do something to actually improve ourselves and change ourselves and be more morally sensitive individuals. Says the Pirkei Avos that a hero is a person who's able to kovesh yisra, one who can conquer, not someone who can beat. Who's the mighty man? Not someone who can beat someone else up, but one who can control himself. One who can control herself. That's the mighty person. And in Western society, in culture at large, people assume a mighty person is one who can prevail over others. Teach the rabbis, a mighty person is one who can prevail over themselves. That's a very important lesson. We've heard it, but we have to think about it. All right. Now, the more conscientious we are of our weaknesses, the more we can limit them and how they do damage to others and how they do damage to ourselves. This requires preparation. For example, if our weakness, and who isn't afflicted by this, is envy, then we have to be aware of the problem. Because if we're aware that we have envy, then we can try and curb it. But what happens is if we don't realize that we have envy, chances are we're going to rationalize. And rationalize will mean we're going to demonize other people. We're envious of them and we'll find flaws in them. Far better would be if we recognize we have this weakness and to deal with it. Once again, it was Rabbi Joseph Tlushkin who came up with this brilliant idea of transposing the idea of, we know that we're supposed to make fences around the Torah. For example, according to Torah law, you're not allowed to eat a 4-legged animal cooked with milk. That's the Torah prohibition. But to eat meat and milk separately, there's no prohibition from the Torah. To eat milk cooked with meat, to eat fowl cooked with milk, there's no prohibition. Came the rabbis and they made a fence. They made a fence and said you can't eat any meat with milk, even if it's not from a 4-legged animal. And not only that, you have to separate 6 hours. And not only that, they said all kinds of prohibitions. One other example. So you would think the rabbis are being so restrictive. Why are they making so many prohibitions? I'll give you an analogy for this. Let's say there's a cliff with a very steep cliff. And what the foresters do, the rangers, is they put up a fence 6 feet in from the edge of the cliff to make sure that you don't fall off the cliff. And even if you fall over the fence, you still haven't fallen off the mountain. So would you say that's very restrictive and cruel of them? No, they're trying to save your life. That's precisely what the rabbis are trying to do. They make fences so that you don't go over and that you don't do the actual crime. We know if a person has a tendency to do things which are immoral. So what you have to do is make a fence to make sure you'll never come to such a situation. I once heard Rabbi Victor Miller say that if the world would only be careful about the mitzvah of yichud, so many problems at home, so many wars could have been avoided just to make sure a man is never together in one room with a woman who's not his wife. If that alone, so many problems would be avoided. So if you know what the problem is, make a fence around it. And not only regarding religious matters, but also in character matters. If you know you have a problem such as envy, realize that this is a problem, and therefore you won't be so quick to demonize other people who you're envious of. If you have a temptation to deceive people, for example, the Torah has so many prohibitions and warnings and mitzvot regarding weights and measures, because people have a tendency to schwindel a little bit, to trick a little bit. The Torah tells you again and again, make sure that your weights and measures are honest. Interesting story. My host in New York, when I travel there often, is the Pashkes family, very sweet people. And as you know, those of you in the religious world know for sure, that Pashkes candy is a tremendous conglomerate. Even the Pashkes candy store in Borough Park, it is not large enough to contain all their brands. There are so many different products in their line. And how did it become such a large operation? I don't know. Some people attribute there's one person in the family who's a very clever businessman, but I think that's not the real reason. I learned this years ago. I was in Germany speaking on behalf of the American Army, Jewish soldiers in the American Army, and they had a retreat once a year on Thanksgiving for Jewish soldiers, which I attended on more than one occasion. I met there a good friend, became subsequently a very good friend of mine, Moshe Rappaport from Switzerland. He told me, I'll tell you why Pashkiz is such a successful company. And this is what he told me. He said that old man Pashkiz, who passed away relatively recently, Laser Pashkiz, he had a little operation in Crown Heights, underground in the basement, and he said he was assigned for his Pirchei group to go there once a week before Shabbos and buy some cookies for the group. He would buy 200 grams of cookies. We say in America, you buy a quarter of a pound. And Mr. Pashkiz would weigh out the cookies, and then he'd throw a couple cookies on top.